Hello and welcome to Penguin's Event Chat. We're here to talk about all things incentives. So our topic for today is the wow factor: purpose, position and personalisation. I'm Holly and I head up the incentive travel department at Penguins, and I'm really excited to introduce my guests.
Hi Holly, thank you. My name is Tessa Whalley and I work for Preferred Hotels and Resorts. We represent more than 700 one-of-a-kind independent hotels, resorts and lodges across 85 countries. Really looking forward to being here. Thank you.
Hi Holly, my name's David Marks. I work with MM&Company, a DMC representation, marketing and sales company, not 85 countries, but 23.
Thank you very much. So I thought we'd kick off with the wow factor. Now, we get asked for the wow factor in every single brief that we receive from clients. And we've even got to a point now where we've started asking our clients, what do you consider the wow factor? Because I think that's very different for each individual. And it's quite interesting, some of the information that we've had back on that. How do you, David, I'm going to you first, how do you tackle that question when you're looking at putting together a completely bespoke event for clients?
It's the worst word we can ever hear, because they want the wow factor. Oh, but we would like it in 24 hours. We've given you the brief on Monday, and we want everything back by Wednesday, and we want the wow factor that's never been heard of before, never been thought of before. And I think the wow factor is so many different things to so many different people. People that don't generally stay in hotels could walk into the lobby of one of these wonderful Preferred hotels and say, wow, this is fantastic. Now, is that a wow factor? Mm. Or is the wow factor when they walk into their fabulous hotel room and there's a personalised bathrobe? Wow, somebody's thought, oh, my name's written on the bath. So a wow factor is so many different things to so many different people.
For me, obviously, when I'm suggesting all of our hotels globally, what I think is really important and what we sort of see as luxury and how our hotels present luxury is by connecting the client or the group to the destination, and one-off experiences. Now, those one-off experiences can link to the wow factor, but I think for me, when I have my clients and if we're working together, it's really understanding exactly who they are, what they want and why they're there. And as David said, it's such a personal thing. It is very, very, very bespoke. And it can be one person, it can be the owner coming and greeting the group, or the individual, and that can be a wow factor, and that can make their stay. Or it could be that, as you said, the personalised bathrobe, or that amazing amenity that just ticks and gives someone that amazing feeling of I feel special, or listening to someone throughout their stay and then actually performing, offering something they've shared that's important to them, whether it be a magazine, whether it be something they like to do or eat, and that is shared in their stay. So I think that it's really kind of a bit broad spectrum of things. Is that?
Definitely. And I think, like you've both said, it's very different. It's a different experience for each person. And often the money can't buy, as we all say, the fantastic phrase that gets thrown around in our industry.
I think the wow factor as well is very much destination specific. Mm-hmm. For instance, these are wow factors that I've been involved in. Cape Town, for example, we had a group of 15 people, and they wanted a wow factor. Now, the wow factor that we did for them was we had a Harley Davidson transfer. So
amazing.
It was the noise of 15 Harley Davidsons cranking up, and everybody getting a helmet and a jacket and choosing their own Harley Davidson to go to the wine district. That was wow. And I've got some amazing photographs of people going, oh my God, is this for us? Wow. And it really did. You saw them all say, wow. In addition, we were talking about Russia a minute ago. We had the principal ballerina from the Mariinsky Theatre dance the dying scene of Swan Lake. Now, for me, I'm not into ballet. Trust me. Well, maybe on a Friday.
Only a Friday night, yeah.
My little tutu darling. But from that perspective, that the lights went down, a spotlight came on, and this fabulous athlete. I mean, she was an athlete. Came on her tiptoe things, and it was wow, we had people crying.
Mm.
I thought that was a bit too over the top. But it was a fantastic wow factor.
Yeah.
And so a wow factor is, as Tess said, so many different things to so many different people. But those are just two examples of wow factors that we've delivered to clients such as your clients.
Mm. So let's talk about the money can't buy thing then, because obviously money can buy whatever you want.
Absolutely.
I think from our experience of creating the wow factor, it's definitely been through contacts like yourselves to be able to really, okay, this is what you can do for your client, but can we crank it up a notch? And like you say, have the GM come down and personally welcome the guys as they walk into the hotel. Can we have the Mariinsky ballet performer come into a private venue that we've in some exclusive castle within, I don't know, St. Petersburg, to perform? It's those kind of things that connecting those key people that I think makes the money can't buy. But it is one of those phrases that gets blown around a lot, doesn't it? And do you ever feel like we're kind of jumping onto that when actually, realistically, if you've got all the money in the world, you can have whatever you want?
I suppose we are here because there's someone who has all the money and they can choose and buy anything they want, but they might not have the imagination. They might not have the resources, they might not have the knowledge. So I think that what we can, as in our roles, and what we are offering to our clients and sometimes even my family and my friends, is that understanding and that knowledge and the experience of knowing and feeling and understanding that, okay, this is what they want. They can buy whatever they want. But I think actually they might want something a little bit different that isn't necessarily super expensive, but it's just that knowing and empathizing and going, hang on, okay, it's sort of when when I first started working in a hotel, I'll never forget the best advice I was given, and scary, from the restaurant director. He said, I almost can preempt when someone's cold before they know they're cold. So it's sort of that, it's empathy, it's understanding human behavior, it's understanding what exactly they want before they want it, and then that's, I suppose, creating that one-off experience.
Absolutely, you're spot on. It is the creativity as well, isn't it? And it's about having, without going too deep, it's about emotional intelligence, and like you say, really walking the walk before that client has done it themselves. So I think the reason we're all pulled together in this luxury industry is because we know what it feels like to feel good.
Yeah,
and we enjoy it, and we help our clients harness that and create an experience through it. So
I think it's also true that when you looking at a wow factor, clients don't quite understand how much it costs, and they say, "Oh, money's no object." And then when you deliver a real wow factor that you've worked on for a couple of days and you've really got that idea and said, this is the wow factor, and it's going to cost you 10 grand a head.
we don't want that much wow.
10 grand a head? Yeah, it's far too much wow. Can we turn down the wow bit? And so I think what you said, Holly, was absolutely right. The client doesn't really know what they want. And I think it's your job to drill down exactly what they want, what pushes their buttons, and then to be able to go to the hotel and to the DMC and say, this is what they want, this is what we think we can deliver, this is how. I think it's always very useful to know how much money you've got to spend.
Absolutely.
We have a number of programs in various destinations, such as, again, South Africa. You can go up in a helicopter with the local ranger, and you can spot white rhinos, and you could dart white rhinos as part of the conservation, and they're saving the species and all that kind of really good, warm, fuzzy stuff. But it's going to cost you 10 grand. Oh, okay. How about if we go and pet a rhino? It's going to cost you a fiver.
It's good to, I think, in our line of work, to have our gold standard, our silver standard, and our bronze. I think that's probably where you're getting at as well, isn't it? We all want our clients to do gold standard.
Yes.
Of course we do. It's much more fun for us to organise, let's be honest.
Better bottom line.
Better bottom line. But I think you're right. We do have a real specific role of honing in on what is that wow factor. And I come back to cost again, because like you say, David, we could be a little bit spoiled within our industry, and what we believe to be real wow factor, like darting white rhinos in South Africa, is incredible. I don't think that's once in a lifetime stuff,
Yes,
isn't it?
yeah, it is
Whereas
once in a lifetime.
for
Yeah,
some of our
absolutely.
clients, taking a helicopter over Cape Town is once in a lifetime, and I think we need to check in with ourselves every now and then and just make sure that we're on a level of what is wow factor, and make sure that our expectations are in line with our clients, because often I've found that when I'm running a program, which obviously all of us have got a lot of attention to detail, and when we're on site we think, oh, this could be so much better if we just did this, whereas you've got 15 people stood there with their mouths wide open, and that was
Amazing.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like your ballerina experience,
Yeah.
people are crying in the audience and you're like, right, where's the champagne?
Yeah, because you're
I know
thirsty.
you, David.
Yeah.
So I think it's also very important to talk about, obviously we've been talking about the wow factor, but actually, especially I've been very lucky to travel to lots of our preferred hotels and resorts around the world, globally, and experience different kind of situations and stays. And I think for me, and what I also have and feedback from my clients when they stay in our hotels is, they're a group of independent hotels and one-off experiences, I'd say. And what's really important is to think, the attention to detail when it comes to a client stay can be so really as simple as the owner coming to greet you on arrival, knowing how long you're staying there for, knowing almost sort of where your history, what you do, what you like to eat, ask you what you like to eat. It can be walking into a room and having something that is special to you. It can be a beautifully handwritten note. It could be, your favorite chocolates.
How hot you like your coffee.
How hot you like your coffee, exactly. Whether you like oat milk or whether you like normal milk. But it's those little things where I think as a person, it doesn't cost any money. It's really looking into that individual or that group. And it's that attention to detail which can make someone feel special. And also it can link the stay to a memory, and that memory stays with you forever. I've had experiences and stays where it's been so small, the detail that I've experienced. So for example, I was saying to you, Holly, before, I had a conversation with the GM about what my favorite magazine was, and it was sitting for me the next day in the restaurant, and it was a foreign hotel. It was a British magazine, and that for me was the listening and the understanding, and that will stay with me forever. And I will then, because of that, I share that story with many people, and it hits something, it hits a chord. So I think it's important to also share that those are, and that also links back to empathy and understanding people, and that's what our industry is about. It's about personalization, and the fact that contact and in our age we have so much digital. Sorry, I'm going ahead, but the digital age and the lack of connection with interpersonally. We mustn't forget that in our industry, it's very, very important to keep that alive, and by keeping that alive, we are successfully creating these experiences and understanding the human being.
Got a little quote here as well from the site manifesto, which I use as my Bible because I think it's fantastic kind of route to pull our industry together, and some key points have come from it. But despite the digital age, people continue to crave connections with real people in real time and real places. People want tactile reassurance, and I think there's
So
nothing more spot on than that.
And it's being eroded. You can express check in, you can express check out.
Take away the people altogether.
When I started in the hotel business a few years ago, because that's how I started. At the reception desk, clients would come and say, "Oh, hello, my name's Mr. Johnson, room 273." Oh, and then you would give them a key from a key rack. "Hello, Mr. Johnson, have a nice day," type of thing. It's electronic keys, it's electronic check-in, it's express check-out. Your room service menu is you can dial it on the phone or whatever it is, and I think we are losing that personal contact. And I think when it comes down to an incentive program, you can bring that back with, as Tessa said, in the hotel, the personalised items in the room, and all that type of stuff, and people use it. One of my favourite expressions is the first thing that you're given when you're born is a name. And the only thing that you take to the grave with you is your name, because it's on the headstone. We should use people's names more often, and the embroidery of what's on their bathrobes, and the cakes with "Welcome, John," with the logo of the company. That's and you're coming back to the wow factor again, and it's all interlinked. It is about the personalisation. It's about people. It's about, I remember my business was told, the DMC business is going to die because video conferencing is coming in.
No.
Oh my God, do me a favour. Nobody wants to finish an event by hugging a laptop. You want to finish the event by hugging your hotel representative and hugging your DMC. Wasn't that great? We did a great job. And the client says, we did a great job. You can't do it with a laptop.
Yeah. So in fact, then this whole digital age, and obviously digital plays a massive role in our industry to support it. But actually, perhaps that trend is actually working in our favour, because people are craving that experience, and maybe the impact of that personal experience is even more heightened because we're missing it so much in our lives.
I think, just to sort of chime in, I think it's also important because the personal contact and walking into a hotel and them knowing your name is so important, and people love that. There is also the area where, some people do like to express check-in, but it's knowing your audience.
Exactly. Again, that's knowing your audience.
It's knowing your audience. And I think, I sometimes feel when I come off a long trip and I check into a hotel, I like to just have a little conversation with someone, because I might be feeling a bit lonely, or I haven't really spoken to someone in 24 hours. And actually just having that interaction just very quickly is really, I like it. And then I can go to bed and have a glass of wine and feel, I feel satisfied. And as we said, we all crave human connection and human communication, especially sometimes when we've had a long time of just being with ourselves. It's nice to have
talk. It's good to talk.
It's good to talk. We like talking.
We do. I think we the three of us like talking a lot, don't we?
That could be a phone advert. Good to talk.
I was just thinking back to these sort of the money can't buy experiences, and actually flipping that on its head, and the money, take the currency out completely, and come back to that whole element of adding the wow factor without any monetary value, and linking it in with this personal touch. I know for us, there's certain destinations that we have that we've got these little hidden gems up our sleeves. Like, for example, in Canada, we'll take a group of people over to Canada and get them over to Lake Louise, and we'll time the flight so that we get them there in the evening, get into their hotel, get them into their rooms, just give them that they're knackered, they've just had a long flight, they get into the hotel, just give them a little bit of a tip, or speak to the housekeeping staff to just crack the window for them, so that they wake up. They're going to wake up early anyway because they're going to be jet lagged. But the wow factor of waking up to that sort of pine, fresh mountain air, and then looking over the lake at 6 o'clock in the morning, it's incredible. And that doesn't cost anything. And it's just those little gems. Or I always remember, again, staying in a hotel in Tenerife, and I was madly running around trying to organise an incentive trip. And as we know, there's never really a moment to yourself during that. But I remember going back to my room to pick up a charger or something, and I just noticed that someone had drawn a bath for me, filled with rose petals and candles. I'd obviously made a good impression on someone. And I thought, that's really lovely. That's so thoughtful. Unfortunately, I'm running around like a headless chicken.
Did you get there? Did you get in the bath?
I didn't get in the bath, but I thought, that's really nice. But to top it off, I went back to the event, and I came back to my room a few hours later. The candles were still lit. The bath was still hot. So someone had been back to my room to rerun the bath, and I thought, they were my expectations. They've just gone up. And then, unfortunately, by 2 o'clock in the morning when I came back, the candles were out and the bath was dead.
But
I thought,
you know what? They had to go home.
The fact that I hadn't had the bath didn't take away from that experience.
The memory stays with you forever.
Totally, yeah. I mean, that was probably well over 10 years ago, and I still remember that. So obviously, Tessa, I know we've talked at length about how your GMs have gone way above and beyond the standard, because you don't do standard in your properties. So can you think of any examples where something's happened, like you mentioned about the chef and having a chat with him about how you could personalise that experience for the group? Is there anything in particular that springs to mind of any of your properties?
I think being a independent brand, I think with the hotels being one of a kind, and they're all very different. I think it's the fact that they have just so much attention to detail, and like your Bath experience, I could name so many, but it's really just linking the fact that in all the stays that I have, as I said, it could be as small as having an amenity that is that links to what I like, or the conversation I have, or the chef coming out to your table and talking to you, when he really doesn't necessarily need to. It's being, for me, it's the communication, and it's the listening, and I think that's important.
We often don't listen, do we? We think we're listening, and we're trying to do this a lot more in our client meetings. We're very passionate about what we do, so we're quick to rush to the end result. But actually, listening to the audience is so important.
Communication,
yeah.
It's all about communication.
So on that, I know we've touched on the personalisation theme already. There's lots of different ways of personalising a group experience. I'm coming to you, David, on this one. Traditionally, incentive trips would be a group experience. And I think I've noticed a bit of a trend recently where people are looking for more of a personalised itinerary, which might split them off from the group a little. Do you think that making trips so specific to each individual's request is losing that group interactivity that you often get with having an incentive group altogether?
It's a very good question, because nobody really wants to be a group. They don't want to be, it's my favourite expression, they don't want to be sheeple. Bit of sheep, bit of people. They don't want to be sheeple. They don't want to be led by somebody with a pole and a scarf saying, "Follow me." They don't want that. They want to have that security as a group as well. And I think if you fragment it into lots of different things, I think that would lose the cohesiveness of the reason why they've all won their incentive and why they're all together in the first place, because they all work for the same product, and they've all done very well, and they've beaten their targets, and therefore they've won the incentive. And it's about being together, and because of course when they're away together, there is that motivational aspect of it. And I think I think to fragment it too much would be defeating the purpose of going away as a group. But what we found, which was quite interesting, is when there's large groups, you can do different things on different days, and then they all come back and interact with what they did today and what they did today, and get that again. It's a talking point. It's getting involved. It's getting the incentive group as a group together to be cohesive. So there are different ways of splitting up the group, but not fragmenting it, if you get what I mean.
I think you're absolutely right. As long as you bring the group back together and it's
absolutely.
a shared experience again, I think that the benefit of a group, as we know, going back to money can't buy experiences, is that you've got that buying power to secure these unique locations, perhaps to have a meal in and have a Mariinsky Ballet Theatre performer come and enhance that. But I think I agree. I think as long as you're bringing those people back together, and just touching on your point of people not wanting to be part of a group, I think that is really key. I don't know if you both have noticed when the trip starts and people kind of say, "Oh, I just don't want to be around all these people," and by the end they have that group mentality where they think, what am I going to do tomorrow?
No mates.
Yeah.
Where are my mates going? I think when I've led a business development event to a destination, and we start with 10 people and making sure that those 10 people are with you, and then when you say goodbye to them at the airport, they've all got nobody's following me. I'm on my own. Yes, I'm on my own. Fantastic. Everybody's gone. But there is that sort of, I had really good fun, and they're not there anymore. So yeah, I think there's as I think, Tessa, you said, when you get off a plane, you want to have, sometimes when you finish a group, go, I want to be on my own. don't anybody ask me what time is dinner, because I don't know and I don't care, and I'm not telling you. I just
Is
want to be
that
on
because
my
you're the organizer, though, do you
Yes.
think? Because I do think that there is this natural tendency to, like, for people to cling on to each other once they've spent some time together and shared experiences together. One thing that I did want to talk to you about with personalisation, is there too much room for error? We're talking about embroidered pillows and robes with names on, beach towels, anything that's kind of personalised to that degree. Do we feel like it opens us up to what's the impact of that going wrong?
There is plenty of room for error, but it's all about communication. If you make sure that all of your team knows that John's moved from or maybe John and Mary got together, who knows? But they're oh, that's been controversial, isn't it? John and Mary's. We'll move on for that. But it is about communication. Mary's room has changed, so make sure you change the rooming list and make sure you change the room drop list. So yeah, there's plenty of room for error, but that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to mitigate the errors and make sure that it all works well. So yeah, you could say that, but so long as you manage the changes, no.
And Tessa, I've heard some interesting ideas from hotels of vinyls on the mirrors and, like I said, the embroidered pillowcases. Are your hotels adopting anything like this? Obviously, you're independent hotels, so that you've probably got quite a lot of big personalities in there that have lots of creative ideas. Has anything stood out for you?
I think what I find is that there's a lot of room to be imaginative. And I think that because they are independent, they want to kind of stand out as individual hotels, one of a kind. They do strive to find and give that experience, which is, as I said, one of a kind and bespoke. And I do, and I notice that because they are able to be in some ways imaginative, and I think that when I work with a lot of my clients, they say, gosh, it's amazing how they go above and beyond, and that above and beyond can be, as you said, it can be being very imaginative when it comes to something within a room or what you offer during the stay. And I think what David said is important, is it really is the communication, and obviously with the linking back to making sure that aren't any faults or things going wrong. I think it's actually the communication and the service with the hotel and your communication with the hotel, because we are both responsible for making sure that obviously that client stay is perfect. And it's key to know the final client, but it's also key to understand and connect with the hotel when you're in that process.
And I think that's a really important point as well about where we all slot into that process. I think from a client's perspective, a lot of agencies are very keen to kind of be the front, and we're responsible for the hotel, the DMC, everything that goes behind it. Obviously, we know in the background there's a hell of a lot of communication and negotiation and a huge thought process that follows that. Is it frustrating sometimes to not be able to be involved in those conversations earlier on? Would you prefer to be able to know a bit more of that detail from the client in order to provide a more personalised experience? Do you find, Tessa, that sometimes you receive that information a bit too late? So, I don't know, the client's arrived on site and all of a sudden we want something very personalised.
I think because I work when obviously with my clients, I'm doing the suggesting the hotels, and I'm advising and giving my experiences. Obviously, my relationship with the hotels on property, the staff. I think that what I make sure in order for there's always frustrations, but I think that it's not blaming anyone, because we're all responsible. There's all different links, different people, and their involvement in the process. And I think that for me, it's just very important to be clearly communicate, and also to understand each person's purpose or each person's role and how they can be effective in creating that specific perfect stay or incentives.
What's our role and responsibility in creating meaningful, purpose-led incentives?
I think maybe, if I may, preempt what you're trying to think about. It's about sustainability, it's about corporate responsibility, it's about environmentally being environmentally sensitive to what the impact of your particular incentive has on the environment, on the local economy, and is that sort of the type of thing that you're thinking about?
I think there's two strands to it. So yes, there's the sustainability side, and having that clear conscience that what you're doing is A, going to benefit that local economy, and B, isn't going to damage the universe, which by flying 200 people long haul on a plane could be perceived to be doing. But also there's the other element of how it's perceived by that individual who has won that experience, basically, and understanding if what they want from it now. Is it just being wined and dined within a program, or is it interacting with the local community and experiencing something that's quite unique, or understanding where their part in that program could potentially have an impact on that local community?
I think, if I may, Tessa, and you can jump in with your heart. I think there's an element of they want to be wined and dined because they've worked hard, they've sold their products, and they've beaten their targets, and they want to be rewarded for that. So I think there is that fabulous preferred hotel. There's that amazing location that they're going to go to. But I also think that, bearing in mind that the audience is changing, it is no longer a piss up. I agree with that. And I think there's the luxury element, there's the wow element, but there's also, because it's a 3-day event or something like that, there is the caring element, the environmental element, the recycling element that can be and should be and is now being woven into the program itself. So it may be a team activity, a team building activity, which is great, which in years gone by it was a treasure hunt, but now the team building activity is refurbishing a playground in an orphanage. A team building activity might be redecorating a classroom block of a village in Prague, for instance. So they've got the fabulous hotel, they've got the wow factor, but they've also got I did something good in that destination. I gave back to that destination. The feel good. That's a great expression. It's a feel good factor. I feel good about being on the trip. Okay, people think about their carbon footprint and all that kind of stuff, but there's also a lot of people that say, no, I care about the environment. I want to give back to that community. I want to leave that incentive, knowing I've left. I constructed a bicycle for an orphan in that particular village, and my company allowed me to do that, and that's exciting for them.
I completely agree, and I think, just to say one more thing, I think obviously it's just being thoughtful in the process and adding, as David said, doing lots of different things to suit different desires and to make people feel that they're feeling fulfilled. I mean, I would say, just from my experience within Preferred, when we have our internal meetings, we always try and make sure that our meetings are as sustainable as possible. So, it's also making sure that when you're going to a hotel, that they are, they're as eco-friendly as possible. So it's sort of reducing plastic when you're having the meet. It's all those things. And I know, obviously, with an incentive, but it's incorporating that, and you can still wine and dine and everything. But it's also, the person will know, oh, well, they're really going to the lengths to make sure that this is, and what we're doing within the stay, they're being as environmentally friendly and sustainable as possible.
Just coming back to purpose and addressing the buzzword of millennials within our workforces. And an interesting statistic that in the UK, 17 million millennials exist and are living and breathing. We're not to be scared of them. We're to understand our audiences. But that does equate to a quarter of the total population. So I guess when we're considering our audiences, do we need to be more mindful of the fact that these new guys coming through our industry and our business are potentially looking for more meaningful experiences. Something, Tessa, we've talked about before, potentially having some bragging rights even during these trips. Is that something that's worth?
Well, I think
noting?
it's important to know that now there is the sort of here and the now, and I mean, I don't want to obviously pinpoint what a millennial is and what they feel, but I think there's a real sort of they want something extraordinary. They want something that they can, as I said, it's sort of creating a bragging right, because there's social media is very heavy. You when you're on a trip, you want to, I suppose, show off, where you are. It's also the communication with back home. Sometimes before, when you're on a trip, you wouldn't have that link to where your friends are back home and them being able to experience what you're experiencing the here and now. And so it's understanding that when you're trying to execute a program, and there are a lot of millennials, is knowing your audience and knowing how you can shape their experience in the most successful way and actually satisfy them. And by doing that, it's very much creating experiences that they will be satisfied by.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have got a big responsibility and an opportunity, I suppose, to I don't want to say manipulate, but to
Manipulate's a good word.
manipulate a social situation. So we've talked about the use of technology within on the programs themselves, but is there an opportunity for a digital detox? Could we consider removing phones altogether? So allowing people the opportunity to brag about the place they're in, the hotel that they're staying in, tag as many places as they like. But then can we extract them away from that and really focus on the experience and the here and the now, rather than what's going on Facebook and Instagram?
Yeah, and I think that it's interesting because David touched on this a while back, is about bringing someone out of their comfort zone and actually them realising that is actually comfortable and experiencing something that's slightly different and is challenging when they first experience it. But, for example, not having mobile phones or not having the ability to, let's say, brag, or show off what they're doing to their other half back home or their family, and actually bringing them away and allowing them to be in the now. And that being in the now can actually create a lot of different emotions. And by doing that, it can be very successful for us and for obviously the destination, the hotel, because you are able, they're opening their eyes to really truly experiencing something and experiencing it for themselves emotionally, and not because of what someone else thinks or how they look or what they're what is perceived of what they're doing. And I think that's really important, and it brings back to the emotional connection and with creating experiences for people and how important it is, and understanding that individual, and sometimes just going a little bit off piste and doing something that you think, as I said, could be uncomfortable, but also could be really it could really have a lot of successes as well.
Enhance the experience. I find the thing that's drawn me to stay in incentives for a little while is the group dynamics, and I think that the incentive is the platform for that. So I remember interviewing a project manager to come and join the team, and the one thing that really stuck in my decision making of thinking this person's not quite right for incentives was the fact that she mentioned that it was great doing her previous role because there was an account director there that could schmooze all the older guys so that she could concentrate on the younger ones because she had more in common. That was a real sticking point for me, because I realised then, I think that the most important thing with any trip is making sure that your audience feels comfortable.
I think one thing to say about knowing your audience, it's really important because, with our conversation about millennials, I think what's really important is that it can all be a case by case. You can't always go by exactly what you think is going to be. The one millennial can be different from the other. To someone of an older generation could be completely different. So I think it's managing expectation, and it's managing the fact that it can all be every situation can be different, and being really open to that.
Without wanting to be too controversial, the fact of the matter is that you're going to have a really broad church of an audience in the next few years on an incentive. And I think that's going to make it harder for the agency. It's going to make it harder for the hotel. It's going to make it harder for the DMC. But hey, what's life without a challenge?
Oh, that's a nice ending, isn't it? So that concludes our incentive podcast. And if you've enjoyed listening, please could you go ahead and subscribe and leave us a 5-star review if you've enjoyed what you've heard so far, and leave any comments if you've had any comments too. And all that's left to say is a massive thank you to David and Tessa. We've really enjoyed having you with us on our panel today, and I hope you've enjoyed it too.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Holly. It's been great.
Thanks very much.